Hey people, guess what? It's Waylon Mercy again. Ain't it something? I'm out here on the beach, up here on the lifeguard stand. Now I know you people must think that's kind of peculiar, but what the heck? Waylon Mercy's out here protecting people from drowning or whatever. You know, the funny thing is that when I get to the WWF and I get in that ring, the wrestlers that get into that ring's lives are going to be in Waylon Mercy's hands. Have you thought about that? You know what I mean?
In the mid-1990s, while the World Wrestling Federation was packed with cartoonish gimmicks and family-friendly spectacle, an ominous figure quietly stepped into the spotlight. In the summer of 1995, a soft-spoken man in a Hawaiian shirt walked into the WWF with a handshake, a smile, and a promise that lives are going to be in Waylon Mercy's hands. What followed was one of the most quietly disturbing and short-lived characters in professional wrestling. A man who blurred the line between civility and sadism, calm and chaos. Inspired by Max Cady from Cape Fear, Waylon Mercy was unlike anything else in the Federation's New Generation era, eerie, cerebral, and terrifyingly calm. Played by veteran wrestler Dan Spivey, Mercy represented something the WWF wasn't quite ready for, a character grounded in psychological realism and cinematic menace. Though his run lasted mere months, Waylon Mercy remains one of wrestling's most fascinating what-ifs. While the character lasted less than 6 months, the impression he left continues to echo in wrestling's darker corners. In a world of loud characters and over-the-top gimmicks, Waylon Mercy stood out by doing less and meaning more. Daniel Eugene Spivey, born October 14, 1952, in Tampa, Florida, was an imposing figure in professional wrestling during the 1980s and 1990s. Standing at 6 feet 8 inches with a rugged look and intense energy, Spivey's career took him through multiple promotions, partners, and personas, each with flashes of promise, but often derailed by injury, timing, or creative misfires. Before entering wrestling, Spivey was a standout football player. He played defensive end at the University of Georgia and briefly pursued a professional football career, including being drafted by the New York Jets and playing for the Jacksonville Express of the World Football League. After his football career, Dan Spivey transitioned into professional wrestling under the guidance of the American Dream Dusty Rhodes in 1983. Recognizing Spivey's potential, Rhodes paired him with another promising trainee, Scott Hall. Together, they formed the tag team American Starship, an early chapter in the careers of two men who would go on to very different kinds of wrestling legacies. Spivey's first major break came in the WWF in 1985. After Barry Windham left the company, Spivey was brought in to team with Mike Rotunda as the new member of the patriotic tag team, the US Express. While he had a similar build and look to Windham, Spivey was less polished in the ring and the team never quite captured the same magic. By 1986, the duo had dissolved, and Spivey moved on to singles competition. Spivey found greater success in World Championship Wrestling. There, he formed the dominant tag team the Skyscrapers with Sid Vicious. The duo was a terrifying visual, two legit giants wreaking havoc on the tag division. They feuded with the Road Warriors and the Steiner brothers, and though Sid was eventually replaced by Mean Mark Callis, who would later become The Undertaker, the Skyscrapers' impact was short-lived. Spivey then wrestled in All Japan Pro Wrestling throughout the late 80s and early 90s, where he earned respect for his toughness and hard-hitting style. Japan gave him opportunities to work more stiff physical matches, often against the likes of Stan Hansen and Steve Williams, and he found more consistency there than in the US. During this period, he also appeared sporadically in promotions like New Japan Pro Wrestling and the Puerto Rico territory to add to his veteran career. By the time 1995 rolled around, Spivey's body was battered, but his creative mind was sharp. Spivey a free agent, met with Vince McMahon to return to WWF and pitched the character of Waylon Mercy. Spivey would later confirm the long-standing rumor that the Waylon Mercy character was heavily inspired by Robert De Niro's portrayal of Max Cady in the 1991 remake of Cape Fear. De Niro's character Max Cady was unforgettable, a southern-accented sociopath covered in cryptic tattoos who could switch from genteel to terrifying in an instant. The parallels were unmistakable. Both characters were charming, yet terrifying southern men who masked their real intentions with politeness. In Mercy's case, the affectation was chilling. Vignettes began airing on television, introducing the eerie presence of Waylon Mercy. Dressed in loose white pants and a Hawaiian shirt, Spivey now had long black hair and a menacing fake knife tattoo etched onto his forehead. He spoke in a calm, unsettling southern drawl, deliberate, polite, but laced with menace, and every promo ended with his signature phrase, "You know what I mean?" For the time, there was truly nothing else like it in professional wrestling. His eerie, almost hypnotic calm was a sharp departure from the loud, cartoonish characters that populated the mid-90s WWF. Upon his in-ring debut, Mercy's entrance music began, not with a beat, but with his own voice, warning the audience. Lives are gonna be in Waylon Mercy's hands. He'd walk to the ring shaking hands and smiling, only to snap without warning into bursts of aggression once the bell rang. In a company full of clowns, garbage men, and anthropomorphic animals, Mercy stood apart. His character relied on mood, tone, and subtle menace, making him feel more like a horror movie villain than a wrestling gimmick. It was a risk, one that could have redefined how characters were presented in wrestling if it had lasted long enough to catch on. Waylon Mercy was Spivey's last best shot at making a mark, and creatively, it worked. Fans and wrestlers alike took notice of the unsettling aura he projected. Waylon Mercy made his official WWF television debut in June 1995, quickly carving a path through the lower ranks by defeating enhancement talent. One of his early standout appearances came on Monday Night Raw, where he faced a then-unknown Jeff Hardy, years before Hardy would become a household name. Mercy's in-ring dominance, combined with his unsettling charisma, helped establish him as a unique and dangerous presence in the company. Waylon Mercy made his lone WWF pay-per-view appearance at In Your House 3 in September 1995, opening the event in a match against Savio Vega. By this time, it had become increasingly clear that Dan Spivey, never particularly celebrated for technical prowess, was physically struggling. Unfortunately, Spivey's body couldn't keep up with the demands of the ring. Chronic injuries forced him to retire just months into the Waylon Mercy gimmick. While he was showcased with some early wins, and even had a televised match against the world champion Diesel, the character never had the opportunity to evolve into something long-term. After retiring, Spivey struggled with addiction and pain management, but later became an advocate for wrestlers' mental health and recovery. He entered rehab, got clean, and in later years shared his story to help others. Around 10 years ago, Spivey worked with WWE's wellness program to support retired and current talent battling similar demons. Despite appearing on television for less than a year, Waylon Mercy left a lasting impression. His psychological presence, disturbing calm, and slow-boiling promos would be echoed over a decade later in the work of Wyndham Rotunda, aka Bray Wyatt. In interviews, Rotunda cited Waylon Mercy as a direct inspiration for his cult leader persona in the Wyatt family, a character that blended swamp mysticism, cryptic promos, and bursts of violence into something deeply unsettling and wildly popular. Years later in the gimmick, Bray Wyatt would pay tribute to Dan Spivey's influence by naming the buzzard puppet in his Firefly Funhouse, Mercy, a clear nod to Waylon Mercy. It was a subtle but powerful acknowledgement of the character that had inspired parts of Wyatt's own eerie persona, bridging generations of psychological storytelling in professional wrestling. In later interviews, Dan Spivey expressed admiration for Bray Wyatt's work, saying he thought Wyatt did a great job channeling elements of the Waylon Mercy character. Yet beneath the praise lingered a sense of unfinished business. Spivey admitted that it still haunts him that he couldn't carry the Mercy character further in the ring, acknowledging the great potential it had, and the rare spark of something truly different in a world often defined by repetition. Had Spivey's body held up, or had the character debuted during the Attitude Era, or even within the confines of today's NXT, Waylon Mercy might have become a staple. The slow build, the chilling promos, the horror-inflected psychology, all of it would have worked in an era more accepting of ambiguity, violence, and darkness. Instead, Mercy remains an eerie outlier, wedged awkwardly between Doink the Clown and the Goon on the WWF timeline. But that's also part of the allure. Mercy's short run and strange, dissonant vibe make him something of a cult figure in wrestling lore. A character remembered less for what he did and more for what he could have been. In that way, he truly is a lost character, one whose influence outlived his presence. Waylon Mercy was a character that arrived too early and left too soon. In a time when wrestling characters were loud, goofy, and exaggerated, he offered a soft-spoken, sinister counterpoint. Though injuries cut his run short, his impact has echoed through the generations, most notably in the haunting work of Bray Wyatt. Mercy's calm menace and unshakable presence made him a standout in an era that didn't quite know what to do with him. But for fans who remember, and for wrestlers who followed in his footsteps, Waylon Mercy is not just a forgotten gimmick, he's a forefather of wrestling horror. You know what I mean?